work so you can play.
Hello again, everybody. This is Papa Smurf here at MiniWarGaming.com. I've been given an interesting assignment. That's to take a little building, new condition, and throw a missile at the side of it and depict the results, both on the outside and on the inside. And I'm going to show you all the steps that I use to get from point A to point B. So let's get going with this. Constructing of this base is very, shall we say, basic. All I did was cut the appropriate size of base material, shaved it around the edges like this, sanded it with a sanding block, and then painted it with a neutral color. That's all I did. Putting these three walls together has been very straightforward. It wasn't hard to do. It was standard procedure, just cutting the edges here so that the two walls join together in a seamless way right at the corner. And this little piece of wall over here, similar. However, it's important to keep in mind for what I'm trying to accomplish here is that this is a metal clad building. Notice how I've placed tiny little increments up here. I drew them in with a pencil already, 3/8 of an inch incrementally. It's going to be a metal clad building, and I want it to be that kind of building to really show the effect of a shaped blast against the wall, like from a rocket-propelled grenade, and what kind of effect that has on metal in a metal-clad building, like this one's going to be. So that is my next step, is to completely clad this in metal now. The roof goes on very easily. Just a little bit of paint to protect the edges, as you can see here, from the super glue, and then a little bit of white carpenter's glue and super glue dotted here and there. Put it on, that's it. Roofs are very easy, at least when they take this format where you're just gluing them down on an edge that's around like that. It's very simple. I find it very important to have these tiny little lines drawn in before the hole was created. Now I know exactly where these little strips are going to go. It makes my job a lot easier. Well, the hole in the wall is proceeding. I just have a few more pieces to glue on here and then bend them inward, and then a few other special effects are going to take place. But right now I have to finish gluing and bending these pieces in. Okay. How I usually glue the structure to the base is situated exactly where you want it on your base, usually pretty squarely in the middle of the base, like that. And just draw a little pencil mark to make your perimeters. And once that's made, then it's time for the glue treatment. As always, I like to put a combination of glues. And follow up with a little bit of super glue. Rest is pretty simple. And just hold it down tight for a while until that super glue binds it through. It won't be long, 30 seconds, 60, doesn't take long. The debris pile that's created here by the blast is going to be a combination of colors. The outside color of this is going to be silver. This is a metal clad building, so there'll be silver in the colors, plus whatever the inside color of the wall is going to be. And what I've chosen is to be a very light gray, a very dark gray like charcoal for the roof, but light gray for the interior walls. And that's going to be reflected in the debris pile. I've decided to paint a few ripped up shards of wall separately, as I've done on this little palette right here. And now that they're almost dry, I'm going to glue them down. All I did was paint them the same gray color that the inside walls are going to be, and then with dry brushing some darker charcoal gray on top of it, just to give it a little bit of character. And I've painted up a couple of twisted pieces of metal cladding from the outside, and that's going to be part of the debris as well. And I'm going to glue them down now. The painting of this little structure here culminated in a little bit of smoke effect above the blast hole here. And if we flip it around on the other side, besides the painting of the debris field, there's also some smoke effect in here. There it is, very visible. And a little bit on this wall here. Very, very interesting what happens with one of these grenade attacks. What happens to the building. They're very powerful little things. And we'll get into that a little more. But anyway, that's my little structure. It's just a house. It's not in a dilapidated condition. It's actually brand new kind of condition when it was attacked with one of those grenades. And that's the result. Well, here we are again at the end of the model. And a very interesting question comes to mind. What kind of missile blew that hole in that wall? And how effective was it? Let's talk about effective for a minute, okay? I'm holding in my hand a model of a tank. And because of its high profile, as you can see here, this is very, very similar to the Sherman tank of World War II fame. June the 6th, 1944, D-Day, was the very first day that a Sherman tank rolled onto the beaches of Europe. And that was so because General George S. Patton wanted the Sherman tank, asked for it. He thought he could win the war with it because it had an advantage. It was very fast and very maneuverable compared to the German tanks. Well, that was true. However, experience, being the very great teacher that it is, soon taught all of them that that was the only advantage that the Sherman tank had over German tanks. For instance, the Sherman tank had a short little barreled 75mm gun that had an effective range of 600 yards. The German Panther and Tiger tanks, on the other hand, with their 88mm gun, had an effective range of 2,000 yards. And oh, by the way, the only way that a Sherman tank could kill a German tank was to drive around behind it and shoot it at point-blank range in the rear, where the armor was the thinnest. They were outgunned, they were outclassed, and they were death traps. And the crews knew this because there were instances where a German shell would come in, puncture a Sherman tank, and the shrapnel would kill all of the crew and leave the tank intact. You could still drive it, you could still shoot it. So in those instances, these tanks were taken to the rear, the hole was patched up, a fresh coat of paint was put on the inside to cover the blood stains, and the tank was put back into the field. Out of desperation, many of the tank crews covered their tank with sandbags, or with logs, or with chicken wire and concrete, anything to beef up the armor of the tanks. To no avail. The German shell would go right through those sandbags as if they were not even there. You want to talk about the unsung heroes of World War II? The tank crews of the Sherman tanks have got to be on the list, because they knew if they got into their tanks and went out to battle against a German tank, they would die. And they got in their tanks and they went out to battle anyway. Well, that was then, and this is now today. And tank technology has advanced in many, many ways. Modern tanks are very fast, they're very heavily armored, and the armaments that they have are truly amazing. One of the most innovative ideas they have is a device called explosive reactive armor, That's a layer of armor that goes all the way around the tank. And when any ordnance comes in to strike the tank, whether it's a grenade or an artillery shell or whatever, as soon as it touches the armor explodes outward and totally minimizing the force of the bullet coming in, so that the armor of the tank and the tank is not harmed. Well, that's all fine and good, but weapons used to fight tanks have also evolved. The rocket-propelled grenade, in particular the RPG-29, Russian-made ordnance. How effective is it? Well, it's composed of two warheads, one in front of the other, as I've shown you here. And once it's fired, the first warhead goes in, strikes the explosive reactive armor, blows it out of the way, and a millisecond later, the second warhead goes in and strikes the armor of the tank. And how effectively does it do that? Well, let me show you. This here is a ruler that I use in my model making, and it is 30 centimeters in length, or 300 millimeters. Well, this RPG-29 can puncture over 600 millimeters of steel, or 5 feet of concrete. It just punches a hole right through it like it's going through a cardboard box. And how effective is that? Very effective, especially in urban warfare, as modern battle zones are, where a town or a city has become a war zone. See, the problem is that no matter how thickly armored the tank is, the tank will always have two main weaknesses. One are the treads, and the other is the very top of the tank, where the armor is paper thin, comparatively. And an RPG can be fired out of a cellar, upward, to strike the treads of the tank as it drives by in a cityscape. In that instance, the tank isn't destroyed, it's disabled, and it can't move. And in the other case, an RPG can be fired from a multi-storied building down onto the top of the tank as it drives by, puncturing the tank, destroying it. And the awesome truth about all of this is the fact that any foot soldier can carry one of these devices onto a battlefield, aim it, and fire it. So the day may come when tanks are declared obsolete. But when? When will that day arrive? Well, I don't know. But most likely it will arrive on that day when war itself is declared obsolete. So now we're back to the model again, and that question. What kind of missile punctured a hole through that wall and left that debris field right there? Well, I don't know, but I certainly believe that it was not an RPG-29. It was something much weaker. Because if one of those RPG-29s punctured that hole, well, the building would not be standing. I've thoroughly enjoyed the making of this model and the very interesting research that I did in connection with it. And I hope that you have enjoyed it as well. This is Papa Smurf, and I'll see you all again very soon in the next video. Thank you.